Welcome to another edition of the Manual. He is the Professor Alton Woods. I am Chip Rice, and man, did you see it?
Jokic.
Oh, it is. His game is so basic, but it's so cerebral. And Jokic is tough, man. I watch him play just the body. His body gets in your way, and his ability to shoot the high arcing shots, man. Congratulations to the Denver Nuggets on their first NBA championship. To Jamal Murray and all those other guys, man. You know that was kind of neat to see them do that.
Yeah, Jokic is the best boring player I've ever seen in my entire life.
Right.
He can't run fast. He can't jump high. His body looked like he drink beer and eat hamburgers all day, and
it's just so cool. He's so Serbian. I love it. He puts you in the mind a lot of Kevin McHale.
Yes,
like nothing special,
nothing physically special,
right?
Yeah,
but with just drill, when you look up how he get 20,
right.
So yeah, man. But I did see something that was interesting on social media, and they were trying to rank who was the best center of all time. They had Shaq, Kareem, Olajuwon, and Jokic. And I said, okay, now y'all are just jumping out on opinions right now because of the age that we live in.
Yeah.
I said, now truthfully, Jokic is a bad boy, but you can't even begin to put him in that realm of conversation with these guys. You're excluding Bill Russell. You're excluding Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
You're excluding some great centers over the course of time.
And the game has evolved and changed so much that the way centers play. So a Shaquille O'Neal center is completely different than a Jokic center.
Yep.
Right. And to me, Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant. I'm not saying best, but just physically.
That probably only because we didn't get to see Wilt Chamberlain play. Because he was just a monster in his time. Yeah, but Shaq was just, what can you do?
Nothing.
Yeah, so
Hack-a-Shaq.
Right. And then you talk about Kareem, who still had the most indefensible shot in the history of basketball. And there's nothing you can do.
Nothing you can do.
So yeah, y'all are out there on that conversation, but nothing taking away nothing from them winning an NBA championship.
Absolutely.
That was kind of cool. It's another edition of the Manual. So we are here on this day after Father's Day, and so I thought it would be appropriate that we talk about fathers, even talk about our fathers and some of our experiences, and then us being fathers to our children. I have some early vivid memories of us living in Jersey, and I somehow this was stuck in my head. I remember us leaving church and all of our families in the car, and my father would take us to some kind of pizza place. And I think it's where my love of pizza came from.
Okay, all right.
But we get pizza and an Italian ice. I remember mine being cherry.
Okay.
So I just remember that, little things. I remember us being in church as a small child, and then moving to North Carolina and going to school here, but just really always seeing my father in some type of working capacity, doing something. So, I appreciate having had a father in the house all of my life, all of my childhood life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I too have a number of vivid memories of my father, but maybe not memory specific. I'll just say that one of the things, and it's interesting because you can be in the midst of it and not appreciate it, but as much as you would when you get a chance to step back. But, I would tell anybody that for me, my dad is probably the smartest man I ever knew. And what I mean by that, and I think we throw smart just by definition. Now, let me set context. We throw the word smart around a lot. a kid gets good grades and we say they're so smart.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not what smart means.
Okay.
Right? They're educated.
Okay.
They're able to retain and regurgitate information.
Mm-hmm.
Smart tends to be more of a natural thing, meaning you have great problem solving skills. You can
Mm-hmm.
analyze things really well and do things without instruction. To
Right.
me, that's what smart
in more than one realm.
In more than one realm,
Okay.
right? And so I say all that just to say, so my father was not very educated at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I can honestly say there's not much I remember him. I don't remember him being unable to do anything that needed to be done. Mm-hmm. So obviously growing up, we didn't have a ton of money. So it was a lot of do it yourself kind of things. Mm-hmm. So if the fence needed to be repaired, he did that. If in New Orleans, the houses are above ground. And so while we don't have a whole lot of winter, when we do have it and it's cold and a pipe bursts because it freezes, we changed those pipes. We didn't call plumbers.
Wow. Wow.
If an electrical outlet needed to get moved, we made that happen, right? And I say we, meaning him, and I learned from him.
Right. Those are two different functions right there.
Right.
Plumbing, electricity.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And some minor carpentry, right? So my point is that's one of the, not the event, but just the ability of him to step in and make stuff happen, mm-hmm. right? Which for me is like, wow.
Yeah.
I have tools right now in my tool shed that were tools he used.
Wow.
Like, wow. Aiden was playing ball outside and he threw the ball and it hit the window. Not hit the window. It hit the screen and it ripped the screen.
Okay.
And so I went to Lowe's or Home Depot, probably Lowe's, but I went to Lowe's and bought the replacement screen. And there's this tool. I don't even know the name of it. I just know how to use it because he showed me how to use it.
Oh, wow.
But when you stretch the screen on the frame and then put that molding back in, there's a tool that you roll that pushes it down. And I went in my toolbox and I pulled that tool out, and it's the same tool he used to do screens at my house. So I had a moment then because, he passed away in 2016. So this happened after that. So I was like, wow.
Now that'll preach that the tools that my father gave me that were relevant for him are still relevant right now for us.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the benefits of being a father, that you want to pass on something to your children, a tool, something that they can use that's going to actually help their life.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So what's it like being a father now?
If I can be honest, I love it. So let me start there. But it's a little more difficult at times than I would have thought it would have been. Right. So here's what I mean by that.
So what that implies is that almost that your father made it look a lot easier than what you're experiencing now.
Well, yes. And I think there's a concerted attack on fathers.
Okay.
Right. And it always has been there. But I think society has kind of opened more space for the attack now than at one time.
Okay.
Right. So at one time, I think there was a very clear understanding in our community of the importance of a father, the role of the father, the respect and appreciation that a father gets. Mm-hmm. And even though the attack was still real, people didn't quite buck up against it as much as they do now.
Okay.
Right. But now, so example, I remember growing up and, high school or whatever, wanting to date a girl. One of the things that is absolutely a requirement when I was growing up is you're going to come meet my dad.
Yeah, you got to come meet my dad.
You're going to come meet my dad. Like that wasn't twisting and turning, pulling teeth. That was just automatic.
Right.
Right. Not so much now. Yeah. Right. Because I think society has kind of minimized the father enough that even in places where the father's present, I don't know that there's as much of an intrinsic value there. So love being a father would never, ever, I would never change that. Right. But I recognize that the father is not seen as an expert in certain areas,
right,
and even an absolute requirement in certain areas like it once was.
It's like our influence has been diminished by society, that because there are a lot of issues with fatherhood, so then the ones that are in place doing what they're supposed to do is they don't get the same respect, they don't get the same
Sure.
value because of what's going on in the lives
Absolutely.
of other people.
Absolutely.
That's really tough because you know now that what you're telling your children is the right thing.
Absolutely.
And I've been through this. I played the game. I've done all of this. So I want to equip you to be successful.
Absolutely.
And yet you got all these other whispers that are going on out here that are in their ear,
Right.
that would say that maybe not so much.
Right. Right. And what it does, and I don't think it's conscious. I don't think the kids consciously say, my dad doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. That's not it, right? So I want to be clear about that. Mm-hmm. But I think when you have, so my kids grow up in a house with a father and a mother, right? A lot of their friends don't. Mm-hmm. And so there are steps and requirements that are not present in their friends' households. And
right.
so the requirement sometimes can feel a bit like an imposition in our household.
Right. As if I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
Because this isn't going on.
I'm requiring so much, right. And in reality, as a father, especially with girls, girl dad, right? Especially with girls, one of the things I desperately want to do is prevent my girls from having to experience unnecessary trauma.
Okay.
Right. There's some level of heartbreak and things that are just part of the growing and maturation process. Yeah. So not an issue there. But there are things that are just unnecessary, right? Mm-hmm. And honestly, if I look back in time, in some ways I would love to prevent them from dating me.
Right.
Points,
yeah, at that point in my life, I was no good for nobody.
Right. And it's the interesting part is the older they get, the more passionate I feel about it. Because, when they're 15, I can look at it and say, yeah, he's just a knucklehead, but he won't last. They're 15. Mm-hmm. Well, you're 24 now. Mm-hmm. So,
right, yeah,
so now I don't know what day you're going to call me and say he proposed. I don't know. Mm.
Yeah.
Right. I know that when my wife and I were talking about getting married, one of the things she said to me is, well, you better call my daddy first. Mm-hmm. I wonder, will my daughters say that to the guy that asked them?
Yeah.
Or do they show up at my house and say, hey, we got engaged? Again, not intentionally, avoiding me, but just the influence and of the father has just been minimized over time. Yeah. And we say society, but it's really the enemy through society, right? We understand what it is and why it's that way.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, man. So yeah. It's a rewarding experience. It comes, if you do it right and take it seriously, there's such a huge responsibility that comes with it, but again, wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. I was just, when you were talking about the proposal, I thought about when I went to propose, before I proposed to my wife Thursday, that I already knew I got to go talk to Ralph Brown first.
Right.
I'm like, I need to have this conversation with him, because if he says no, I'm not saying anything to her.
Right.
Because I know the kind of relationship they had.
Right.
And I'm not going to cause any friction there. So it was just interesting that there's some things that were ingrained in us that we now understand why it's so important.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about initially becoming fathers.
Okay. Yep.
Yours and mine were a little different in that my daughter, my first child, Jasmine, who I love, when she was born, I was somewhat disconnected, young, not really sure about being a father, making the excuses there. So me and her mother, we never were contentious towards each other, anything. But at that age, I just was not as responsible of a man as I should have been, which is one of the reasons that I advocate Jesus to everybody.
Right.
Because it's more than just saving your soul, it's saving your life.
Yes. Because
now I started to learn principles, I started to learn certain things, and I've got to be a father to my child. I've got to connect. And so our relationship started to change
Mhm.
after I made that change. And so now I've tried to be the best father I possibly can
Right.
to her after starting out rocky.
Right.
Um, so that was my first beginning to fatherhood. It was
Mhm.
not a great beginning,
Right.
but it has become so much better from the way I started out.
Yeah. So you're right. Ours was different in some respects, not all, but you know. So number one, growing up, you know, mom and dad in the house, very nurturing, um, loving environment. And to be honest, that was more from mom than it was from dad. And
Okay.
what I mean by that is not that dad didn't love, but dad wasn't expected to show his love the way mom showed her love.
Okay.
It was a very manly love and a
Mm-hmm.
very womanly love,
Yep.
right? And they look and feel different, and you know who to go to when. You know, when you
Right.
need your elbow kiss because you
Yeah,
scraped it,
daddy ain't
mama's
gonna
gonna
kiss.
do that. Daddy's not kissing it,
Daddy's not
right?
kissing.
But anyway, I say all of that to say, and then I grew up in a family, man. From the beginning, and it's interesting because I think about even the stuff I do now in a lot of different youth organizations. I guess it all kind of connects because I have always loved kids,
Okay.
right? And I knew I won't go through my whole testimony because then we won't have time to finish the show. But I knew at a very early age, one of the things that I was called to do is be a husband and a father,
Okay.
right? And so now, fast forward, I was pretty well established career wise and all of that stuff when Summer was born,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now so I was in the relationship, right? And Summer was conceived and and born. We weren't married. The relationship at the time wasn't contentious or anything of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now it did get a bit contentious shortly thereafter, right? And obviously it didn't work out. But one of the things that for me was a non-negotiable is I am not leaving my child,
Okay.
right? Whatever that means, I
Okay.
am not leaving my
Okay.
child, right? Because not only is being a father something that I knew I was supposed to be, and not only was I excited to raise my daughter, I was also unwilling to allow some of the things that I see happen in the absence of a father happen to my child,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, without getting into all the details, I essentially was the primary caregiver for my child,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, I learned how to braid hair and potty train and, and all that kind of stuff. So when I first became it was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It was scary,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I remember when she was a baby and she had a lot of ear infections. And so I'm working in a new city, in a new job, and she's months old with ear infections.
Wow.
And when she couldn't sleep at night, I couldn't sleep at night. I tell people I don't think I slept for the first 2 years of her life,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
For various reasons. And so, but anyway, but I was committed to it. It just wasn't gonna change,
Mm-hmm.
right? It just was what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I look back on it and say, how in the world? But the grace of God is the answer. But
Right.
how in the world? Because
Right.
I could not imagine doing that right now.
Wow.
Just when I look back at the amount of work, but I was committed to it, man. But it was scary and it was overwhelming for sure.
Yeah. So parenting is life changing.
It is.
When my son was born, I was there for his actual birth,
Mm-hmm.
and which gave me another greater appreciation of being a father to Jasmine and to Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of understand why parents, in your estimation, are crazy.
Yeah.
Because you don't know that you can love something so much,
right,
until you have a child.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't even know that it is possible for you to love a human being the way you do until you have a child.
Absolutely.
And I think that sometimes, okay, if we put irresponsibility in there, that's a piece of it. But I think sometimes that fathers miss opportunities in these situations where they got the girlfriend or whatever the situation was going on, but to be there to see life come.
Right.
And attach yourself to that child.
That's right.
Sometimes they get scared because it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
What do I do? But being a father is just such a privilege and an honor.
It is.
To be able to raise and to point in direction and to help and to protect and to give guidance to. It is when God created fathers, he knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing. Well, he is one.
He is one. Right.
He's the perfect one.
Yeah, he is. And so we keep looking at his example. And so it is a man loses out on an opportunity to show another God aspect of his life.
Correct.
When he's not a father, a present father.
Correct. Absolutely.
Wow. So shout out to all the fathers that are out there that are doing it. If you're a father, maybe got some issues going on or some contention in relationship, don't let your fatherhood be based on the relationship that you have with the mother.
Right.
Be a father anyway.
That's right.
Some of this stuff y'all just need to figure out and stop tripping, because the kids need you.
Right.
In my line of work now, I hear so many testimonies.
Yep.
I think that just use that because it's a
Yep.
church word. I don't
Yep.
know if that's the correct word.
Yep.
But when people are giving me their information, there's so many times that they talk about how their father was absent, that they didn't have a father in the house, and how it impacted them. And it doesn't say that you can't survive, but it does mean that there's a very important aspect of their life that they shouldn't have to deal with.
Correct.
I had one client say something to me that I was sitting in the session and I wanted to cry.
Mm-hmm.
I think he started crying, but he said that his father wasn't in his life. He said, so he made up his mind that he was going to be a good father to his children. And he said he was playing with his little daughter one day. And he said, and it hit him that, why would my father have missed out on a moment like this?
Right.
I was like, wow.
Right.
That's how he said he had to stop playing with her and walk away and get himself together.
Yeah.
And then come back and play with her because he just thought to himself that, man, I wish I had my dad here.
Right.
To impact me in that moment.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's an awesome opportunity and a major responsibility.
It is.
Right.
It is.
And I'll be honest, you referenced, don't let the mother, affect your ability or willingness to be a father. And that's easier said than done though, in certain situations. Right.
Okay.
So the first thing is it's not too late.
Okay.
It's never too late.
Right.
So don't think, oh man, I haven't done it for the last 10 years, so it's too late. It's not too late. Right. Is it hard? Absolutely. Because now the child, depending on their age, has their own impression, right, of you, and you're gonna have to overcome some of those things, right?
Absolutely.
And yes, some of that will be built on their experiences, and some of it will be built on what Angry Mama said. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, there are some other factors there.
There are other factors, but it's worth it. It's worth it. So fix it. There's that. The other piece is I think that that we mothers. I'll talk to mothers for a second, right? So you and I talked about this a while back in a very particular incident, but one of the things I think is fascinating when you go back and you read the Bible, right, in Genesis, and so God the Father, we know He's loving, we know He's caring, we know He's all of those things. Because when we couldn't get it done, He came to earth in flesh and got it done for us,
right,
and made Himself the sacrifice.
Right.
That's love.
That's love. Right.
So now, so I could have just said God is love because it's in the book, but I wanted to illustrate. Right.
Okay.
But my point is this: so He gave Adam and Eve, but particularly through Adam, but He had rules, right? And He had things that you had to do, or there were consequences to it. And so they didn't do what they were supposed to do. Go read it if you want to know the details. And so He put them out of the garden. Right. And so God, the perfect Father, who's willing to die for you, is also willing to provide consequences for your bad decisions.
Right. Behavior that could absolutely bring you to destruction.
And the consequence is sometimes related to His desire to save you in the end. Right. And so why do I bring that up? Because there's some fathers who are struggling being a father right now because the mother is critiquing everything that he does. Mama doesn't want to discipline the kids, or at least not in the areas that don't matter to her, right? And then when father does, she has an issue with that, right? So mothers, number one, understand that if you're saved, the perfect father put his kids out of the garden. So let's not start acting like the perfect like the father of your child is being too harsh because he
Right.
wants little Johnny to have some discipline.
Yeah, there's some things that you have to discipline
You
because
have
if you
to do.
don't, it could cause their destruction.
Cause their destruction. And so number one, just be open to the fact and give that man some space if he's doing it from the right place and the right motive and the right intent.
Yep.
Right. Fathers also understand that mamas love their babies and they
do.
show up differently than you do. And so give her some space. Right.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of contention that happens in the father-mother relationship because the styles are different.
Right.
Right. I used that when I was talking about my mother and father. I remember, my father said something to me. I don't remember what we were doing something around the house, but I don't know what caused him to say this. I don't remember, but I obviously
You did something.
right? But he said, the older you get, the stupider you get. And that stuck with me. In that moment, it hurt me, but more importantly, it actually made me mad if I can pick the real emotion, right? But shortly thereafter, it was like, okay, now my mother would never say something like that. My mother would be like, I need you to stop doing that. You know better.
Right, right.
So stylistically very different. Both come from a place of love.
Right.
Right. And so mothers, leave space for when daddy say you doing stupid stuff to not assume negative intent. And sometimes the child needs to hear it that way. Right. So stylistically, sometimes the different styles can cause some challenges, and fathers will often unplug from a situation, right? Because it's easier to unplug than it is to
because
stay
you don't
and
want to
fight.
deal with all of the hollering, the drama, everything else, and so you just back up. But fathers, you have to get in there, say what's right, do what's right, and it's okay, fathers, to hug your children, to kiss your children, to embrace them, to show them that you have both sides of this covered too.
Correct.
That you may not act just like their mother, but they do need to know that there's affection that can come from you as a father.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. And by the way, we may be talking to some fathers who have unresolved issues with their fathers. They may be doing a good job with their kids, but they have unresolved issues with their fathers. I challenge everybody, if you have a father and you haven't interacted with the father, you have some unresolved issues. And I know you're watching us the day after Father's Day, so if you didn't do it on Father's Day, we can't go back in time. But go on and text him or call him and tell him Happy Father's Day. Break the ice.
Right.
Because the Bible says honor your father and your mother.
It does.
Right.
And it is not contingent upon what they do. It is you giving honor.
Exactly.
And there's some tough things that have been said and done, but if you have the opportunity and they're still here, do your part to fix it.
Do your part.
Do your part to resolve it, because it's obvious that it couldn't keep you from moving forward.
Right.
It is just a space that can now be healed and helped if you initiate the process.
Absolutely. And I'll add, and again, my relationship with my dad has a lot to do with this. I get it. But boy, I couldn't tell you what I'd give for that dude to be around right now, right? For me to talk to. And so I bring it up because don't let your dad close his eyes and then you have to figure out what it's like for him not to be around or to deal with those unresolved issues.
Right.
Fix them now. Because the one thing I say is I miss my dad like crazy, but I don't have regrets.
Okay.
There's nothing that I can honestly say I would have done more of or better than while he was alive.
Right.
So I miss him, but I haven't missed the opportunity.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, dads, man, we're proud of y'all.
We are.
We advocate fathers. We are for men being in the lives of their children and being the best you can be for them. So happy Father's Day to all of you, and keep being a father, or start being a father.
That's
whatever the circumstances are.
Or start again. Whatever it is. Right.
That's right. This has been another edition of The Manual. He's Alton Woods. I'm Chip Rice, and you can find us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube,
TikTok.
We are TikTok, tickety top. At Manual, the number 4, the letter U, Manual for You. Give us your comments, your likes. Whatever it is that you want to share with us. Maybe you have an idea of something that you would like for us to talk about as far as from a male perspective.
Yeah.
Put that in there. We'd love to hear from you. This is The Manual.